Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. Today, I wanted to go over a topic that was highly requested, and that is regarding the long-term effects of being with an avoidant. Now, I'm going to bring it up into two different categories: when your partner's unhealed and you're with them for a long time, versus if they are healing or healed and you're with them for a long time, because the effects are different and it's actually pretty significant, which is why I want to go into it separately. But before we do, I think it is important to determine which area you will categorize yourself and your partner in. And so before we do, I want to go over just 4 quick aspects of how you can kind of tell where your partner lies in the healing versus unhealed spectrum. And so you can understand where your partner and you determine your trajectory together. The very first one is going to be progress versus no progress. Now, I have worked with avoidant individuals who are much older and they have, been alone for a long time. They may have been married before, but their relationship has failed and there is just no progress with them. Now, working on other issues, yes, but when it comes to their attachment issues, there is just no progress at all. So if your partner has a little bit of progress, even if it's very slow, there is some progress, this is a sign your partner will probably heal, because there are avoidants out there that just don't have any progress. They don't have any progress. And so it's very important to recognize if your partner is progressing even a little, even if their anger is getting a little bit better, even if they're, learning to apologize, even if they are more self-aware of your feelings, even if they can understand how you're feeling without you saying it, because relationships, as you progress, that happens. Avoidants are not so good at that. But if they're healing, maybe they said a remark that you didn't like or appreciate, and for a second, you made kind of a sad face, but you moved on, but your partner noticed it and they apologized. That's obviously a sign of progress, right? So paying attention to these signs will help you determine which direction your relationship may end up, okay? The next one is honesty versus lying. Now, this is more so about character. And regardless of if you're an avoidant or not, everybody has a different character. So this one's a little bit tricky, but different characters that I see in therapy kind of shows me how I can determine whether this individual is going to change or not in general. Like, you could be anxious, and this is still a good way to determine if this person even has the potential to change. And honesty is a really big one. And when I mean honesty, they might lie, but it's like the integrity of who they are. I don't know how to explain it. Like, they have a more ethical perspective. It's almost like not just like large lies, but also lies in general. Like, they're more comfortable with admitting fault. They're more comfortable with being honest about their failures. They may be more honest about how they're feeling. Like, you're being annoying right now. Or like, sometimes you're too clingy. Like, they're honest. Whereas lying, they might, word it a little differently. Oh, have you ever thought that maybe you're the problem? Or, very passive aggressive, right? And so these aspects to me help determine that I know this individual is probably going to change, because honesty shows that they're resilient. Lying tends to show that they're much more afraid of conflict than they are of setting their own boundaries. And that can be a big issue when it comes to trying to heal this attachment issue, because part of healing this issue is by understanding what bothers you as an avoidant. And so if they're lying all the time, they're not getting to the source of it. So honesty versus lying. The next one is I'm trying to explain this. It's like, typically this will be with heterosexual couples. I work with mainly male and female couples. I just think it's the area I'm in, like the state I'm in. It's just more the population I work with, so it just happens to be that way. So this one might be a little specific to that, but it's a negative perspective of the opposite sex. However, but most avoidants have this. But what ends up happening is one that is much more unlikely to heal. They have a very strongly negative perspective of the opposite sex, where the other one might be negative, but it's also more neutral. So let's give an example of all men lie, right? Really common. Maybe an avoidant individual thinks literally like all men lie. They're all controlling. They're crazy. They're unstable. They're angry. That's really negative, where they might have that would be like the more unhealed one. But the healed one might say, or the one that might heal, might have a negative perspective of the opposite sex. A lot of men lie, or how do I know, that you're not lying? A lot of men do that, or a lot of men cheat. How do I know how to trust a man? Like, you can see that there's still a little bit of a crack open, where if you can mention, I get that you've had negative experience, but I'm just not that type of guy. I've never been that type of guy. They are more willing to hear you out, right? And so that's a very important distinguishing factor. And the last one is the ability to accept fault versus one that just like blames everything but themselves. Avoidants do that, and this is much more common with older generations. Really not as common with avoidants who are in their 40s, 30s, 20s. But I see this much more common if they're like in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've never worked with anybody in their 80s. The oldest is 70s for me, like age 70, not year 70. And they tend to have a much more negative perspective of the world in general. It's not my fault. My marriage failed. Later, they might blame themselves, but it's after it's like all said and done. But during the relationship itself, they blame their partner a lot. Whereas the other individual that's more leaning towards healing, they may blame themselves more. I know that I'm, difficult, or I know I'm hard to live with, something along those lines. So those are some quick signs just for you to know if you're with a heal, like one that might heal or one that will not heal or may not heal, right? And this is just, this is not a one size fits all. So what happens to you? What are the long-term effects of being with an avoidant? So if your partner is unhealed and they stay unhealed, you will become more anxious. I see this a lot. You're going to become more anxious and uncomfortable with your surroundings in the relationship. You're going to be more hyper-focused, hyper-vigilant, hyper-aware. You're going to feel more suspicious. You're going to feel more like a lot of the symptoms that you have regarding your anxiety, it's harder to heal. Like, you just feel so uncertain all the time, especially if you're unaware that your partner is an avoidant. This one is really difficult, right? The next one is extremely similar. If you're unaware, you're going to question your self-worth. That's the next one. You'll question your self-worth. Now, what does questioning your self-worth mean? Sometimes you think somewhere inside that your partner doesn't have a problem. You just are unlovable. There's something wrong with you. And that's probably not true, right? I don't believe anybody is completely unlovable. I don't know if that's possible. However, the negative part of your brain and the concepts that you have, the unconscious fears, the subconscious fears, are becoming so prominent, and your partner is reliving those fears that you believe it. And because you're already feeling anxious, they're not healing at all. So you're not really seeing any progress, which is reinforcing the fact that maybe there's nothing wrong. It's just you. And so you're questioning your self-worth. Are you the reason this relationship is not working? Are you the reason that your partner does not love you? And that is a very scary feeling, okay? The next one is if you're unhealed, like if you are unhealed as well, and you're anxious or fearful, avoidant, leaning anxious, you will become more jealous and paranoid. And I see this a lot. It's unfortunate, right? Two unhealed individuals, and you're seeing this happen. You're going to become more paranoid. You're going to become jealous. I've had patients before they start healing, but they admit, like, when my partner was behaving this way, I would not know how to control myself. Like, I would drive to their work and see who they're talking to. I would try and talk to them on their lunch break, even though they told me that they're busy. I would see, what they're doing at the fire station and talk to the other firefighters to know where my husband is, like whatever it is, trying to investigate and not recognizing, or maybe they're recognizing, but it's hard to control the behaviors and how abnormal it may come across. And I'm not saying abnormal in a bad way. I'm using it in a psychological and clinical way. But what ends up happening is because you're feeling more jealous and paranoid, the partner is also feeling more defensive and pulling away. And the behaviors on both ends just become so much more increasingly difficult to heal on both ends. So that's very important. The next one, this one is so common. This is one of the most common attributes. You become more bitter, resentful, and angry, especially towards your partner, right? You just become very hateful towards avoidance, hateful towards men, hateful towards women, whoever your partner is. You feel very, very hateful and very angry, very resentful, very bitter, very hurt. And you might want to blame your partner instead of yourself when it could be both sides. But it's just the pain was so difficult during the relationship and through the relationship. You don't want to just throw that pain that you felt away. It's hard. It's hard to heal. It's hard to forgive. And so forgiving your partner is also much more challenging. The next one, this one might be specific, but I do see it. If you have children, you may take your anger out on your kids. And this might actually create a cycle where the kids become avoidant because you're crashing out and the kids are seeing that emotional outburst. So they're becoming more detached from their own feelings. You may have higher expectations for them to not behave like their, dad or their mom, whoever the avoidant is. And so they actually do become avoidant, fearful, or dismissive. And it creates an even stronger cycle to where at first you were taking your anger out on your kids and now you're actually angry at your kids because they're also becoming that way. And they also are running away from you or being detached from you. And now this cycle is resembling your partner or your ex. And so you're feeling even more angry and even more hurt. And you're feeling even more isolated. And you're feeling more targeted in the family. Because when you behave like that, it's a more likelihood that your child will become avoidant because you're having a lot of emotions and they can't have space for their own emotions. And so they pull away from you. And so you might be in a family situation where a lot of your children are also avoidant. So you may feel very singled out. What I actually see is often, not all the time, but an anxious, preoccupied, especially if they have a personality disorder, they may actually pick on one child that is specific who is like their partner or their spouse, their ex, whatever, who resembles them more, who may have more attributes of being avoidant from the start, or maybe their parents, their ex's favorite kid or the first child, whatever it is. That can create a divide where some kids are much more anxious and some are more avoidant. And so it creates just a cycle in the family in general. It's very, very unhealthy. And this can happen if one or more of the partners are unhealed, the parents, sorry. The next one, similar to what we mentioned, you question your worth, you become more anxious, but you truly start believing that you are unlovable. And a lot of times you're going to deny this because it's such a hard pill to swallow, but you truly believe that you are unlovable. And obviously that's not true, but especially if you have the family function like I described, maybe your kids don't, react the way that a healthy child would react. And so you're feeling more and more unlovable. You're feeling isolated. A lot of times if your partner is unhealed, they're very detached, but it makes them very personable to other people. So they can't see the imbalances in the relationship between you guys. They only see you guys when you're in public. So they think, oh, your husband's not that bad. Or your wife seems a little bit cold, but she works really hard. She brings in a lot of money. People don't see the wounds. And so you begin to feel very unlovable, very isolated, and like there's no hope, right? The next one is you try everything to make it work to the point that you feel foolish and insecure. Those are words that patients have actually said to me. You do anything. I had one patient describe, and this is not too specific. I have a lot of patients that do this, that they they print out documents or they buy books or they, whatever it may be. And they highlight certain parts of it and they show their partner. They watch videos all the time. They're always indirectly saying, oh, if you do this, we'll do better on this trip. I would really like if you did this, or they'll change everything about themselves. I had one where they change their preferences to match their partner's preference. They're doing everything they can. They're changing themselves. They're changing their looks. They're everything so they can attain their partner's love. And if your partner was more healed, or you accepted your partner for who they are, or you left, whichever direction you want to go, you would not be doing this, right? And sometimes it's to the point where it's something that you would never imagine yourself doing and you just ended up doing it in this situation. So please forgive yourself if this happened. It's okay. It's not like it happens. You're human. And the last one is you may do things for attention that you never thought you would, trying to flirt with somebody else by making them jealous, telling your partner that, your neighbor hit on you, just anything to make your partner have a reaction so that you can get some of that love that you feel like you're not getting. So these are some of the symptoms that can end up happening if you're with an unhealed avoidant. But what about if your partner is healed or healing? Because there are things that happen with that one too. And I think it's important to bring that up as well, because I see this one more frequently. And so I feel like I have more knowledge on this, but I'll still try and make it around the same length as the first section. The first one is you start to have a more positive outlook that people do change. And, I'm going to call a lot of you guys out in the comments in a good way. I noticed that a lot of you guys who are with a healed avoidant and you guys are also healing, I can immediately tell, because you guys have a positive outlook on relationships and avoidance and yourself and your healing. Like you really believe people change because you have changed, you admit you've changed, and your partner is changing. Like you have just a positive perspective. And I really like seeing this. It's really common. It's one of the first aspects when I know, okay, this relationship is probably going to work, right? You feel like people do change. You've changed, your partner's changing. It feels really good. The next one is you actually feel grateful and appreciative. Like you appreciate your partner. You like their quirks. You like your own quirks. You don't want to be a different person. You know they love you for who you are. Just because they're difficult, you don't feel like the world is a negative place. You're grateful for the way your life turned out. You're grateful for the fact that this is the way it is. You don't want to change the foundation of your relationship. You believe that change will happen, but you also appreciate how it looks right now. The next one is you realize the little things matter a lot. The little things. Your partner remembering your birthday when they used to not. Whereas maybe another person who's with an unhealed avoidant or they're unhealed themselves, they may just be angry. Why do I have to remind you? But you're thinking, okay, maybe the first time I had to remind you and it was annoying. But the next year you remembered yourself. I'm very happy. I realize these things show me signs that you do love me. This is working. The little things matter. I don't need a partner to give me X, Y, and Z because I know my partner's always there for me. And maybe one day I will get X, Y, and Z. But I also notice that my partner will pick up the phone no matter what. My partner will be honest with me. And I know that not every relationship is like that, and I'm grateful that I have this, right? The next one is you feel loved because you know your partner is putting effort into making both of you happy. This one is actually, I see this a lot, and it's a really nice feeling because sometimes it takes work. It's not natural. Sometimes you have to stop and think, what is my partner really doing? Especially because avoidant individuals, they're also not very vocal. And so it's really hard to determine, is your partner really making effort? Is it just, why are these changes happening? Are there really changes? But there usually are. If your partner is healing, sometimes you got to stop and really pay attention. Where were you 1 year ago? Where were you 3 years ago in the relationship? If you're seeing progress, reflect on that. And you start feeling more loved, realizing that this is probably coming from your partner's effort. And it is. They want to make you happy. So it's really important, okay? The next one is you feel safe and secure. Your partner is difficult, your partner's annoying, and you're difficult and you're annoying, right? Even secure couples think that way about one another, by the way. But you still feel safe. You still feel secure. Overall, you do feel like you both want to make it work. It feels good. You really believe that at the end of the day, this is the one for you, and you feel like it's going to happen and things are going to get better, right? This one, it's true. You may get annoyed remembering how many things you had to sacrifice to get here. You're on the top of the mountain, but how many feet did you have to climb, right? How many, what is it, the word? I don't remember the word, the measurement, the vertical measurement. I don't remember. How high did you have to climb to get here? Right, you're at the top now, or you're close to the top, but you look back and you're like, wow, I had to sacrifice a lot. And I know a person who's secure does not have to sacrifice that much, but I had to. But you know what? I made it work at the end. I did it, my partner did it, but it was hard, right? Sometimes you feel that way. You get annoyed, you get frustrated. Wow, I had to do all this to get here. I'm glad that I got here, but wow, that's a lot. And you know what? I understand that, right? The next one is you're not afraid of their triggers anymore. When they get triggered, it's just a moment, right? They're going to get triggered. They're going to get frustrated, but it'll pass through and you're going to be fine. The relationship is still okay. And you truly feel like at the end of the day, they're probably not going to leave because of these triggers. They haven't. Especially if you guys are a long-term couple, you're not really afraid of them. You still want to manage them and make sure you're not hurting your partner, but you're not afraid of those triggers anymore. The next one is you feel more confident in yourself. And this is actually the complete opposite of what we brought up with an unhealed avoidant. You feel confident because avoidant individuals, when they're healed, especially if they're healed or healing, they compliment their partner in a way that avoidants tend to when they love you and care about you. They may compliment your intelligence. They may say, I know you're a smart person. Or why are you listening to that person? You know that you have much more knowledge than they do. They're building you up. And so you actually feel more confident in yourself. You feel confident in your life, your trajectory with your partner, and just who you are. And so that's very important. And this in general is a sign to determine that the relationship is probably beneficial for you, especially if you guys have been together for a long time and you're starting to realize that you're feeling more confident, especially if you reflect on your relationship and you're noticing you're becoming more confident, more happy and secure. It's a really good sign, right? The next one is you're not afraid to speak your mind because you know you're going to be accepted. So a lot of avoidant individuals, they can be triggered pretty easily. But as soon as they start to get more comfortable with their partner, okay, they're more comfortable understanding the differences and nuances between different people, which means other opinions. And so as they're healing, as you're healing, it's okay to disagree. You want the walls orange, they want it blue. Okay. And you say blue looks bad. It looks hideous in the kitchen. Whatever reason. That's a strong remark, but you're not afraid to speak your mind because you don't think your partner's going to crash out and leave you. And maybe you were out of line, but you're okay with sometimes making those mistakes because you know that your partner will accept you and you can back up and say, you know what? I shouldn't have said that strong word. Blue's just not my thing. I feel like it makes me uncomfortable in a kitchen. Whatever your reason is, right? But you're not afraid to speak your mind. The next one is you feel like the relationship is more equal and balanced now. In the beginning of the years of the beginning years of being with an avoidant is usually imbalanced. The avoidant tends to hold more of the power, but as the relationship progresses, you actually start feeling like it's more balanced. And you really feel like your feelings and your say matters. And that's really important. Avoidants are not good at sharing. They've been alone for so long, they don't like to share the power, but the fact that you're seeing that difference is a huge sign that they're healing and that you're comfortable, right? And the last one is you realize you have the same goals. Like you do. I think that this is common with all couples who are starting to heal and get more comfortable with themselves. You do realize that you both want this fight to end in whichever way. This is an example, right? Excuse me. For example, if you want to resolve this conversation by talking about it, right? They want to resolve it by cutting it off. But the main goal is you both just don't want to have this fight anymore. You see that, right? And so you start realizing, you start paying attention more to the goals you have instead of the actual thing that's happening in the moment. And so that allows you both to make a compromise. Okay, the avoidant individual is going to lean into the fight a little bit more, get some of the good details out so you guys can find a solution while you're going to lean out a bit and so you can enjoy the harmony, right? And so that's just an example. I hope this video was helpful. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.